everybody to the February 11th, 2026 Garrison Board of Education regular workshop business meeting. Dusty, will you please call the roll?
Jocelyn Apsello.
Excused.
Eric Arnold.
Here.
Jennifer Harrington Wilson. Here. Jen Jasnow.
Here.
Peter Lesser.
Here.
Ken Schott.
Here.
Sarah Torn. Here.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Do we have any changes to tonight's agenda? Hearing none. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accept the agenda as presented. May I have a motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, Dr. Stoll.
Thank you, Dan, and good evening, members of the board, community. I'm going to be very brief this evening in my superintendent's report because I think the presentation that we all want to see is the incredible work of our outdoor immersive classroom committee and our architects that are going to try to bring that to life. But what I want to do, this is our last meeting before we get into March, is just wrap up the modified winter sports season. I've had the pleasure of going to many of their games, and I have to say, with respect to boys basketball, all but one player on the team had no organized basketball experience. So a brand new experience for many of our students, boys basketball players, and I saw a steady improvement personally from their first game to their last game. Really, Coach Van did a remarkable job at teaching the game to the boys, and they never lost commitment, they never lost dedication, and I think they really had a fun experience. So thank you to all of our players and our families that support them, and Coach Van for really giving our boys a wonderful experience. Girls basketball, they were a very competitive team this year. We have 3 Garrison students that were on. This is a combined team. This was a really resilient, gritty team. They too improved through the season, and Coach Pete did a wonderful job. So congratulations to all the boys and girls, the coaches, Pat Beckley, and all of the students. I will say a lot of students, middle school students, came to support them at the games, and it was really wonderful to see. So I would say a very successful winter season. Here's where I'm going to brag a little bit on behalf of our faculty and our staff and our students and our casting crew. If you did not get a chance to see, I know we recorded it, but I don't think anything could have taken the place of the live performance. The Annie Jr. production, I would say, could rival some high school productions. It was that good. There was not, usually at these events, the little kids that come to them, they're running around, they're distracted. There was not a movement in the audience. Everybody was absolutely fixated on the performances. So to our talented cast and crew, as young as 5th grade this year, they did an amazing job. Miss Arneson, our new theater teacher, I mean, what a remarkable performance. To Mr. Young and all of the students that participated in designing the set was amazing. The sound was great, so thank you Board of Ed, GSEP, for all the work we've done on having a really nice sound system, and Mr. Barone for being our sound mixologist for those 2 evenings. And what an incredible turnout. We were a little bit light on the number of chairs we put out on Thursday night. We increased it by about 50 chairs the next night, and we still had to add some more chairs. It was an incredible turnout. So the months of dedication, I think the community was excited for it. I couldn't be happier for our kids. And one thing that came to my mind is we may be small, but we put on one big show. That is for sure. So this is my proud brag moment. And thank you, Board of Education, for supporting our performing arts. I think our programs have just can rival anybody in the middle school area. A couple happenings. February 13th, that's this Friday, is our middle school Valentine's Day dance. We have our winter recess, so schools are closed, so to our staff, to our families, to our students, enjoy the break. March 4th, we're back here again at 7 p.m. And the last thing I'll say is before we get into the presentation of the immersive outdoor classroom, I do want to thank personally, on behalf of the board and the community, the members of the Outdoor Classroom Design Committee, so Annie Menace, Christina Bucola, Carrie Hilbert, Susan Mounty, Coulter Young, Peter Lesser on the board, and Eric Arnold on the board, Sarah Tormey, and Mike McDonald. What a remarkable experience, and I think the culmination of that will be in tonight's presentation. So thank you for your commitment, your input, and your desire to see something like this happen. And that concludes my report.
Great. Any questions for Dr. Stoll? All right. So I'm also going to keep my board president's remarks very quick. I do want to echo what Dr. Stoll said about Annie Jr. We had a chance to go on Thursday night, and it was a wonderful performance. We had obviously had a preview of it, I think, at our last board meeting, and I think the performer who was here set the bar very high, and the full performance did not disappoint. It was really a spectacular production, and so congratulations to Ms. Arneson and to all the members of both the cast and the crew that helped facilitate it. It was really a great testament to the theater programs here at Garrison. Quick reminder to board members, we have our a mini retreat scheduled for Tuesday, February 24th, which will be here. I will circulate an agenda for that. And then just a note to the community, as Greg said, our next meeting will be in March, and that will kick off the budget process in earnest for this year. So I would encourage members of the public to review the documents that will be posted, review the budget submissions that we will be posting. We'll have a number of board workshops and budget workshops and presentations, and we welcome feedback from the community on how that unfolds. So please stay tuned for more details about the budget process. All right. Without further ado, we're going to move on to our first board communications presentations item, which is a presentation from CPL Architects. Welcome to Dave and Gina. This is obviously something I think there's a lot of interest in. The board has been very excited about, and I think it's something we have been thinking a lot about in terms of how can we best leverage this incredible resource that we have here at Garrison in the school forest. So we're very much looking forward to hearing your presentation, and also thank you to everybody who has been a member of the task force or the committee that has gotten us to this point and helped come up with these designs, and gotten us to this point where we're able now to present something to the community. So you may please step up, take the podium. Where's yours?
Yeah, we get
Good evening, my name is Dave Huntsberger. I'm an architect from CPL, Architects and Engineer.
And I am Gina Fletcher. I'm from CPL, Landscape Designer.
We get started tonight and just talk a little bit about the process that the group went through, and also the excellent work put in by the committee. I think that's been alluded to here tonight. But there were a number of meetings. We'll talk about what was discussed in those meetings and how we arrived at some of the decisions and things that you'll see in front of you today. But you can see the time and the insight the committee provided was fantastic. It was really a great group, great conversation, great kind of ideas that were coming out. And I know on our side, everyone who worked on this project was very excited for it. You know, people who were doing the modeling, the rendering, civil engineers were even excited about it. So that's something. You can see there were 3 meetings before this one. We started off talking about the existing conditions and the site conditions. The next meeting was really programming in the buildings. And then on the last meeting, we dug into some responses and some possible ideas for this. So what you're going to see today is a culmination of all those meetings and really bringing everything together, the committee and their vision.
Just to situate ourselves in the site location, it's running along Route 403 off of a private road that the school has an easement on with their neighbors in that upper left corner, and then entering a parking lot where currently there is a dirt trail that we then walk to finally arrive to a clearing on the site. So for some of the considerations for the programming here, we wanted to update the parking lot, get access to a bathroom, along with accessible and ADA compliant parking and trail, and along with the classroom, shelter provided. So the current conditions of the parking lot are right into this ramp where it kind of nestles into the terrain. So there's this one leveled area currently. It's a dirt and gravel section. That is the current condition of the trail itself. It's a dirt path. It ranges between 3 feet wide, but it's an undulating path currently. And then this is where we started to see, right past these stacked stones, was a clearing of reduced amount of trees, some solar access that we thought would be a great place to house the forest classroom.
So the site was really picked because the terrain opens up a little bit. You can see it slopes from the top right of the page down to the bottom left. The neighbors are down in that direction. The trees provide some nice kind of shelter and screening from the neighbors, good for the neighbors and good for the classroom itself. So the path, the idea is that the path is going to run through the clearing, and the space and the structure are going to be a stop along that. So as we look at this, and I think this came out with the committee, is that they wanted this place to be a stopping point along a larger experience in the forest. It's not the stop, it's a place to kind of gather, get some instruction, and then begin their exploration.
So one of the considerations we talked about in our meetings is that we wanted to have a site that also could house an additional school group that would be visiting to enjoy the classroom with the students here. So seeing how we could fit multiple school buses along with emergency access in this zone. So configuring this to be a gravel path, a gravel parking lot compacted with geocell to take the weight of these vehicles in the site, and wanting to keep that natural appearance and the conditions of this environment.
You can see that they're smaller school buses, so they're not full-size school buses, but that seems to be the right amount to shuttle the kids from the school up to the site. It's a very narrow driveway coming in, so the smaller buses are really necessary. And this layout does leave some room for emergency vehicles if they need to get in there and access the site.
And then we also wanted to provide a natural barrier around the parking lot, so incorporating boulders that we find on the site through excavation and pulling into the local forest if needed. And then also having the amount, just calling out that there's about 4 parking spots on the site with a parallel being included. We wanted to place the composting toilet right adjacent to the parking lot, just in case of maintenance having access for that use. And then with the incorporation of the screen, it could also be the signage for the trailhead that currently exists on the site, but now repurposed in a new location. And the idea is wanting to have composite material that's durable and withstands the elements outside. Along, you can see the path entering from the parking lot is 5 feet wide to also allow access to emergency vehicles, smaller emergency vehicles. And this is a single stall, ADA compliant composting toilet that has capabilities to have a solar powered fan and ventilation.
So one thing to note is, one of the desires of the district, and I think the committee, was the seasonality of this facility or this area. It's not going to be used during the winter. So the idea is that the parking lot would probably be closed off during the winter. The site would be closed down during the winter, opened up in the spring, used more in the more temperate times.
And also with this composting toilet that is dedicated for the school's use, so incorporating some type of locking mechanism that can be used for the school exclusively.
So as the idea of walking along this path through the forest, coming upon this clearing, and seeing not only the structure, but also a clearing area with various elements in it. And we're thinking of them as teaching stations or learning stations, places to explore, places to see and to gather, either individually or in small groups. So the committee was very determined to see a variety of learning spaces. And I think the input we had from the faculty who were attending in the committee was that, they're going to be using it for different types of education. There's going to be small group instruction. There's going to be times when the group needs to come together, get some, direction, and then go out and do their own thing. So having a number of different spaces that the kids could get together, not only, to just sit and do work and to draw or, explore, to make, observations, but to jump around and play around a little bit. So you'll see some pictures here of some different seating configurations. The use of natural materials was very important to the committee, not only in the structure, but in the seating itself. Providing different heights and different levels was important because there's a range of students that are going to be visiting this. So it's going to be fun area, with different heights, things to do. They can stand on things, they can, it's not high enough to hurt themselves if they jump off it, but they're probably going to be jumping off a lot of these ramps and these platforms. So, by giving these different platforms, they can write on them, they can play on them. It seems to be a lively space, but also focused around that structure, which we call the gathering space, which gives them a kind of a home base to come back to. You can see, but then they can spread out and go and meet and sit and talk and do their work in other spots. The structure itself, again, it's going to be natural materials, a simple shed roof. There's going to be a storage area underneath the structure that's going to allow the teachers to store some more durable materials so they don't have to lug them in from the bus, bringing it up the gravel path. So probably in the wintertime they'll close it up and take everything out of it. But if it's clipboards or some supplies that they need, they'll be easily accessible. The classroom itself will have spaces for displaying either projects or art, and it'll probably be a simple clip system that goes on some slats in the back wall of the building.
We wanted to show the variety of seating options as an idea that it could also be in a form of basing the types of materials to use. If it's some of the clearing of a few trees could be incorporated in the seating itself, while also purchasing more durable items in between and seeing what could be used over time and building upon that.
One thing to notice here is the use of the gravel. It would be gravel underneath the structure as well. We feel like it's a more durable surface. It's something that can be used. It is an accessible surface too. There was a lot of discussion of, we want to still retain that kind of outdoor experience. And how do we do that? We don't want a concrete pad. We don't want to really take over the site too much. So gravel seemed to be the best option to provide accessibility and something that still retains the outdoor feel.
And just showing some of the representation of how you can do that curved edge around the gravel sections is just laying some elements of fallen limbs of trees, but it will be a kind of a hard edge in terms of keeping the gravel in place and having that compaction incorporated so it can be maintained easily for that ADA compliance.
Knowing that it's going to be older kids as well, there are some elements there, some more advanced kind of areas for them to get the instruction, to present the materials. So keeping it open through all the grade levels was important. And finally, just some last views of the structure itself. So really using that natural shape, that bowl that they found in the clearing, allows them to create a contained space that will give them access and ability to begin their journey into the rest of the trails and space around in the Garrison Forest.
And we wanted to talk about, in relationship to the neighbors south, the idea of incorporating screening based on vegetation and being considerate of what we're planting in this area. Still keeping in line with the forest classroom and incorporating the native plants that you would find within the landscape to fold and continue the conversation within the classroom itself of how the plantings are part of the environment system here.
And it's going to be part of the instructional materials and the learning process too. So, we hope that the selection of the plantings, that would be something that could be a curriculum piece for the students as we move forward. In talking about this, the committee was saying, how do we do all this? How do we think about, the cost of this? So it was really kind of looked at as two parts. One would be the creation of the parking area and the toilet space, this compostable toilet, and maybe the beginning of the trail. And the idea is to, give yourself the ability to get kids up there. The trail exists now. It's not accessible the way it would like to be in the future, but at least you can, get the parking and get that basic infrastructure set. And then the second part would be the creation of the structure and the seating around that. And it can all grow organically. You can start with a few elements and build it over time. These numbers are all based on kind of quantities and areas. The real test will be when we get the survey. We have a rough idea of the topography based on some aerial photos, but we need a surveyor to go out there and really check the elevations. But based on what we've seen and what we expect, these prices are in line with what we're thinking the cost will be. That's it. Any questions or comments?
Great. I'm sure we will. I certainly have a couple questions, but and then I want to open it up to the board as well. So thank you very much. That looks amazing. Thank you again to the whole committee that worked on getting us to this point. In my view, this accomplishes a couple of really important goals that we have heard about from our staff and the administration here, as well as from community members, which is, making sure, number one, that our school forest, which is this incredible resource that we have as a district, a really unique resource, is more accessible to our entire community and to all of our students. So certainly improving accessibility of things like the path, which it seems like has been approached very thoughtfully in terms of the compacted gravel and other elements like that, as well as obviously the bathroom facility, which I know has been an issue that we've heard about from a lot of staff, the need for a bathroom facility in order to ensure that we can take longer trips out to the facility. So I think hitting those points is very critical, I think, for me. I have some questions about that, but very important, and I'm very glad to see those elements represented. And then I think the other main piece is just making sure that we can really leverage this resource to deepen our educational opportunities within this school forest as a whole. So making sure that we have a covered location where kids can spend time, where we can display artwork and have different types of learning environments, which I think, as we've talked about as a board and with members of the community, allows us to really start thinking about the school forest in a much different way, where it becomes a STEAM lab for us, for our students. It becomes a center for data collection, for science projects, for artistic instruction. So in my view, I think it seems like we're very much on the right track in terms of hitting those very important goals and making sure that the district is really taking advantage of this incredible resource that our students have. A couple questions. You mentioned, the durability of the materials. I was wondering if you could just sort of speak to the types of materials you're thinking about a little bit more, and what the thought process is in terms of long-term maintenance for those elements.
Yes, that's a good point. Especially with the structure, in looking at the structure, there's some options. You could go with a metal structure or a wooden structure. Wood obviously is going to be more susceptible to weathering over time, certain types of weathering. There are larger elements. You can do it like a post and beam type structure. So when it was discussed with the committee, they liked the natural materials. The district is obviously keeping an eye on durability and maintenance in the future. So any of those materials that are selected, it would be weathering materials. So cedar is going to be an important material. We're trying to keep larger pieces of wood, for instance, instead of smaller lumber, which gets more susceptible to weathering and deterioration. So, and even the seating. There's some seating, if we could use natural, heavy, pieces of wood and stone, that's preferable over picnic tables. But as we evolve to that, nothing's off the table. So there's an understanding that, as the budget grows over time, we can keep adding different elements. So it's going to grow, it's going to change, it's going to evolve. So the ultimate picture is something with fully natural elements, maybe some site-specific pieces, maybe some local contractors or even artists come in and are able to provide something made out of some local wood, or use some rocks or something in a group. And they were very interested in keeping the character of the forest and keeping the New York State forest kind of essence that they experience walking around these great trails and historic sites.
Yeah, sure.
I was just related to maintenance. Like, did the committee talk at all about an annual budget for maintenance and what kind of resources we're going to need from the staff here? Like, is the staff member going out there, maintaining, cleaning, doing all those things on a daily basis, or like how did we explore any of that at all?
Yeah, there was definitely discussion of that. I mean, I don't have the details in front of me. I mean, maybe Greg wants to speak to
Yeah, I mean, that was a really big discussion, and that's going to be part of our budgeting process. This is just the concept of this. We talked a little bit about, do you do with composite wood or something like that, and then there's cost to that. We talked about how often do we have to replace the gravel, the compacted gravel, and that we'll have to account for that. A service contract for someone to come in for the bathroom, compostable toilets, to come in and maintenance it every so often. So yeah, there's some total costs of ownership, recurring costs, that we're going to have to think about if we go forward with it, because we do have limited staff, and so this will have to be part, going out there, making sure everything's okay every once in a while. So there are costs. We did talk about it. We don't have hard numbers for it.
I just didn't know if there was like a rule of thumb on a budget for, like, if you have a $250,000 project or a $500,000 project, what you should think about as far as annual maintenance percentage. Like, is that 5% annual maintenance? Like, just thinking about that, it's just something to think about.
The committee was sensitive to that, and I think there was some great innovative ideas. They're talking about maintaining trails, and there's some trail groups around here, that could help clearing things.
Sure.
The toilets were being kept close to the parking lot. There's a way, with a composting toilet, and keeping that as kind of minimal maintenance as well. The idea of using maybe some BOCE's work to help with the clearing of the trees. There have been some innovative ideas of ways to, address some of these costs.
Budget question. What materials is the estimate you currently have based on?
So, we looked at some prefabricated or models of structures that we found that the committee seemed to like. In terms of size, that was a good starting point. So you can go to some of these timber framing companies, you can go to some of these companies, and that was a good kind of, for 30 by 24, which would fit this many kids, this is a good cost, and then we've modified. So there are ways, and it could be built on site, but thinking that we have to get all these materials into the site. So we're also thinking, how do we minimize, the traffic, the construction traffic going back and forth, so.
And then is there an escalation cost? You have it sort of split out, which I believe the committee had asked for, of doing parking lot and trail 1 year, and then doing it, the second part, another year. So essentially putting them in either 2 budgets or 2 capital improvement projects. Do the costs come down if they're done all at once, so maybe you don't move out a crew twice?
That would be ideal, and especially for staging, to be able to do all your, if you build a trail, you don't want to drive heavy machinery over it, right? You have to bring
So if you
vehicles in.
work back, like from the structure,
Right,
building
and
backwards?
then finish as you come out.
Come out,
That would be ideal.
I would be curious to know how that affects the overall cost.
And, we've seen it when we bid these projects, the insurance costs, the bond costs, those
Exactly.
general
It's a
conditions
setup.
just add, overhead on all these projects, so by avoiding that with one.
By doing one setup. Do you think your numbers come down a little bit from, because of what your total is 496 or so? In sticking with the materials you spec'd initially and doing it all at once, does that bring it down any significant amount, or would you still want to keep that number?
I think for now,
Okay.
we feel comfortable with that
With that
number
number.
until we, get the survey and look at things. And, there could be some decisions that affect the structure, maybe there's something else, but I think the committee really, in terms of safety and accessibility, that number is a good kind of starting point to provide everything for safety, for, structure to house the number of kids, make sure we get the emergency vehicles in and take care of the number of those.
Good questions?
I just had a question. I appreciate the talk about having it accessible, wheelchair accessible. I noticed you have an image of a person in a wheelchair there, but I didn't see in the gathering spaces or any of the work areas a table at the right height for a wheelchair. Is that part of the plan?
That definitely is a part of the plan. Whether it's for the instructor or for the kids.
I think it would need to be promoted, like,
Yeah.
especially if you want to be inclusive. And some students are sometimes on scooters and not in wheelchairs, so it might be something that's maybe slightly adjustable. I don't know if it's possible with the type of materials we're talking about that have outdoors.
Yeah, and thinking about these, they're all at different heights, making them accessible.
Can you speak a little bit to the timeline? For example, I know this project will need to go to SED, so if this was something that was incorporated into this budget year, and then was able, with the idea you have right now, how much more time do you need to then develop a full plan or to submit plans to SED and start kicking off that process?
So, if the board says, go, get moving right away, there would be a secret, right? You would need to do the secret work, make a determination. So there's a little bit of environmental work that our civil engineers would do to make sure, I'm pretty sure there's no wetlands on this area, but, we have to do that level of due diligence. We started it, but they're going to see all the documentation for that. And, they were very aware of drainage coming onto the neighbors' properties. So we want to make sure that, we've covered all those contingencies. Having said that, I feel like we've pretty much covered what we need to do, and the scope is pretty well understood for our end. The SED review time has really come down a lot. It's like 3 months now to get everything up there. So, it's not unreasonable to say that, this could all, if it happens in May, there's approval. The design could take 4 to 6 months to get done, and up to the SED, 3 months of approval. So you're looking at maybe bidding next spring if you really wanted to accelerate things with work in the summer.
So the earliest timeline, if we moved on, it would be summer 2027, just to like sort of say, I understand how it
Yeah,
would be working.
I mean, we wouldn't really want to have people working in the fall and the winter up there. It would be nice to hit a good contracting season too. And this time of year is a great time of year to go out and bid. So we would be aiming to try to get bids around this time of year, so we'll start this.
Thank you.
Just to kind of follow along with that, so the roofing and the masonry project, we just put that out to bid, and this was something that we gave them the formal approval to go ahead once our budget passed last spring. So, and it's gonna have construction this summer. So it's definitely doable as far as a timeline. The secret stuff will take slightly longer, but it's not gonna impact being able to go out to bid next spring.
Yeah, I'm just thinking also in terms of like, if you're doing the 2-year, you're looking at summer 2027, summer 2028, because you have to basically hit the same cycle again in the past.
Right, you know, and we would go for approval, we get all the approval at once, and you
Okay.
could build it however you
Can
choose.
you go for all the approval at once if the money hasn't been approved by voters?
I mean, that is a good point. We would need to present it to the voters. I mean, if it's separated over a budget, they would need to see the budget presented.
Thank you.
Just, I think I know the answer, but, so we're not contemplating drilling for a well, there's no plumbing for any of this, and aside from solar on the bathroom facility, there's no electrical
Right, so no
contemplated
utilities.
for any of the, for the structure, is that right? And then, you mentioned, I think maybe the maintenance advantages of having the bathroom closer to the parking area. Can you speak a little bit to the distance between the structure and the parking area, and whether, I don't know if the committee thought at all about the trade-offs with that, particularly,
Yeah,
with kindergartners and first graders, if there's gonna be a significant distance there.
The teachers definitely were thinking about that and doing kind of the math in their head, and they thought it would be fine.
It's close to about a 2-minute walk. It's 540 feet in terms of distance from the trailhead to the pier.
So it's not right there, but
But
it's by
it's-
the, I think we're trying to like consider all the issues, and having the maintenance issue, I think.
And we don't know how big the truck is that's gonna need to service it.
Right.
The chances of it going down the 5-foot wide path are low. So we think we sort of need to leave it at the parking lot for the, whatever truck might service it.
Yeah. Great. Any other questions from the board?
Say thank you, Peter, for leading that committee and
It was a great-
I was not a great committee member on this one, and I apologize, but you did an excellent job.
No, it was a great experience. I'm glad we have some of our members here, and it's really great to see this all come together. I love the fact that you really listen to the idea of making the classroom not so separate from the forest. I think we heard that from the teachers too. It's like you go to the forest to be in the forest, not to just be under a pavilion, outside. That's not really what it's all about. It's about getting out into nature even more. And so I think this has the best of those worlds in it. And I do like the flexibility of how we can budget for this, if we wanted, if we can do it all at once, of course, that's everyone's dream. But if not, there are ways of doing it in stages, and to see it really grow.
Great.
I love the idea, it was brought up, that the goal would be to have the students develop a program so they could teach students from other schools. That's what you want, right?
Thank you guys very much. We really appreciate it. We are going to, I think, have a quick agenda change and try and move public comment up so that any members of the public who are here and want to speak to this can do that. So, you guys don't have to stand up there the whole time.
Thank you.
But thank you very much. We really appreciate all your
Would you like a
work.
motion, Justin?
Yeah, we do need a motion.
Can I move to move public comment after item A of board communications and before item B?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so we will then move into item 5-6, and then we're going back to 5. Public comments, read my blurb. All right, public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns. In accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District, any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments, but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. Do we have anyone who would like to address the board? Any questions or comments about this or anything else? All right. Hearing none, we will move right along.
I would like to say something, is that okay?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Can you just sign in here?
No, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. Thank you. Hello, I am Annie Menace, I'm a resident of Garrison, New York. I was lucky enough to be part of the member of the very first meeting for this dialogue, and I'm so impressed with what they came up with. I think that the idea that we can have this learning environment expanded in our school forest is so amazing, and I think the progress that they made is really great. I do see it a little bit schematic. I think that the idea that we have here is really great, and that they've developed it really far. My main comments would be, I love the idea of the bathroom. I think that in that rendering that you shared, there's a bathroom in a separate structure. I think that could potentially be an opportunity where you come into the school forest, you park your mini buses, and then there could be kind of like a little welcome area where you could have a bathroom, some signage. We talked in the meetings about like some cool ideas of like mapping within the school forest, so it's not just a bathroom. So that was my first comment. The other comment would be about the pathways. I think that we can use mulch a lot more, like really try to kind of make a lot of it mulch. And then be very considerate about the ADA accessibility requirements. I think it's not all going to be solved by gravel, because gravel isn't really an ADA compliant material, even if you compact it. So potentially there's more mulch paths, and then there's some gravel paths, and then potentially there's some ADA very specific. As the project develops further with thought, maybe there's some accessibility ideas that can be developed further so that everyone's included, but it's much easier to get to those classrooms in a way. And then also there's less gravel in the forest, just kind of trying to reduce the gravel. And then in general, I like the idea of the 3 lean-tos. I think that they're all like a simple structure is really pretty. And I liked all the idea of the different seating arrangements. But I think that the school probably needs to think about how much you want to go into those seating arrangements when it comes to that point. I think the project could be 2-phased. You could think about it having that parking lot, even just having the parking lot would be so great for the school, and the bathroom welcome center, and then from there developing these different lean-to classrooms. So the school could think of it from a budget perspective, like 2 phase. But my goal as an artist or architect would be, again, I echo that kind of keeping it quiet, keeping it part of the school forest, reducing the impact of materials that might not seem natural. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your work on the committee as well. Anyone else? Right. We will move back to item 5B. Thank you again to everybody. Thank you again to CPL for all your work on this, and we look forward to continuing the discussions. All right, so moving back to item 5B, which is the school lunch update. Hand this over to you, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I just wanted to give the board and the community an update on our school lunch program. So first and foremost, thank you, Board of Education, for supporting this initiative. We also want to thank Putnam Valley, and they've been a really great partner in this and really want to make this thing work. They've even had their food service consultants, HMB, here on site. Because as wonderful as this program is, We're averaging, depending on the meal, 120 to 150 meals a day. That's anywhere from 60 to 70% of our students are participating in the school lunch program, which is a very high percentage. We had concerns early on with this, fall off to like nobody's buying the lunch or getting the lunch, I should say. And so far, halfway through the year, or more than halfway through the year, the answer is no. It still has a high percentage of participation. Yes, it's also, I'm sure, due to there's no cost to families, which I think is also a value added. But at the same time, if it was so bad, and I do talk to the kids about their meals, and most of them I would get about at 80%. It's okay, or it's very good, and a couple of them, depending on the meal, are like, I'm not a big fan. But it doesn't deter them from purchasing or getting the next day. So the one question is, will this die off? Will there be no interest in it as it goes on? The answer to that is no. But it doesn't mean that there's not areas, and I think I've communicated, there are some areas that need some significant improvement in our lunch program. We've worked really hard on our end to put internal controls to make sure that we have an accurate meal count that we send to Whitson's up at Putnam Valley, which is their food service vendor. We even dedicate staff members to making sure that we actually get the meal count. If Greg Stoll orders popcorn chicken, Lillian down in the cafeteria make sure Greg gets popcorn chicken. So we on our end made sure that what a student orders in the morning they get in the afternoon, so that there's no issues from our end of kids changing. That has helped a little bit, but we still have accuracy meal counts. What's sent down here is still an issue. H&B has been down here. They have some solutions that they're working with Whitson's on. Also, quality of food preparation has been an issue. Sometimes, as everybody remembers, or if not, I'll remind, the food is prepared up at Putnam Valley and then shipped here, and then maybe at times reheated, but it's cooked off-site. And there were some issues with portion sizing and quality controls in terms of the food. So there are some areas that we really do need to improve on and make sure that Whitson's and that they're doing things differently. So HMB, this is what they do for a living, they're food service consultant, and been doing it for a very long time. They have a couple proposals to solve some of these issues, or at least get at these issues. One is to do the food preparation and cooking here on site. However, the ovens we have, they work, but they're not commercial grade to the point where they can quickly and adequately cook food in a way that we could get it ready for service. So it would require purchasing a commercial grade oven. We can source it used and pay a fraction of the price and still be within the budget that the board originally set. And we need new written procedures to make sure that they're not sending an inadequate amount of food here and that we don't have enough to cook. So they're working on some procedures. So our hope is that we'll be able to, with the correct procedures, and I'll turn it over to Joe too, because he's been really working hard on this, is that if we have the right procedures of getting the food down here, having backup food in case they're short, and making sure they have enough time and staff here that know, number one, how to prepare the food properly, how to do portion sizing based upon the grade levels and ages of students, and making sure that that they're not scrambling to get food out, so that there's quality controls and the maintenance of temperature and things of that nature. So that's where we're at with the school lunch program. Joe, I know you've been working really hard with Putnam Valley and HMB. Is there anything that I missed or you want to add?
Yeah, well, I think so. Essentially, we know that we can get a better food quality if it's cooked here, because there's less variables. You cook it in time for the students to be able to eat it. There's not all the transit time where you don't have adequate controls. I mean, it's in insulated containers coming here, but it's better if we don't need to do that. So what we want from them is a good set of checks and balances to ensure that when we give them the count, that the folks at the high school where they're doing the prep make sure that they have enough based upon the quantities of kids that are here, because the 7th and 8th graders require a little bit more food than the rest of the kids do. They have to make sure they have the right quantity for the mix of the kids that pick to buy lunch that day, and that the menu isn't that much of a surprise. So essentially, they could have some safety stock here that's in either a refrigerator or a freezer, that every day when this menu item comes back on the menu, they will ship over the right amount either the day before or that day. And then if there's any kind of fluctuation, we have the same stuff in our fridge that we can use to also cook. So, but it just would seem that it's more, there's more likelihood of success if they're delivering cold food in a less of a hurried way than to try to hit a time with hot food and make it good for the rest of the service. So right now, what their deliverable is to get us a good procedure with the checks and balances, that they're monitoring the counts and right amounts for the kids that are picking it. And once we agreed on that, we'll look at sourcing an oven for the cafeteria to replace 2 of the ovens that are there currently.
Great. Thank you very much. I think it's a very helpful update, I think, for us, particularly as we're heading into budget season, just to have a sense of the continued demand, that we're still at the 60 to 70% level, and that's been pretty consistent. You know, obviously, you know, some hiccups are expected. You know, I know that you guys have been working hard on it, and you know that Putnam Valley has put a lot of work into trying to make this program work, which we are, you know, very grateful for. But yeah, I mean, you know, it seems like from my perspective, things are continuing to go pretty smoothly, and obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're pretty under budget for this program. So you know, that's also an important consideration. And gives us some opportunities, I think, to make some improvements. Anyone else have questions about how the program is going? Comments?
Are you looking for authorization this evening to purchase said oven, or is this just?
No, we're not looking for it yet, because we want that procedure to be firm first, and then we will. But it's not, this is the level at which I want to spend for it is not really something I need approval
A
for.
good cheap oven.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, Sarah, we want to make sure we're not purchasing something and just shifting the problem on site here. We want to make sure those checks and balances, that we agree that we think that will work, and that they have safety protocols and backup protocols in case they run short of something, so kids don't go without food. That's happened a couple times, and we want to ensure that that's just not going to happen.
If you do shift to cooking on site, will you need more refrigeration space?
No, because most likely we're still going to be getting daily deliveries of food. So the majority of this food storage is still going to be in Putt Valley. I would say most likely we would be getting stuff a day ahead of time as opposed to that day. But other than that, it really wouldn't change much. It would be a daily shipment of food, and then the menu doesn't change that much. So some of the stuff could be frozen from the prior week that we could use.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you very much. We will move on to item 5C, which is the budget process timeline.
Yeah, I just wanted to alert the board of Finance Committee, Matt, I know Ken's going to talk a little bit about it, but this is our proposed timeline of the budget process. Just remind everybody that the budget vote is May 19th, and we, you know, if the board is okay with this timeline, we'll make sure that it goes out there. The only thing I will say is we are considering doing a live budget webinar. We have not picked a date yet. We have to arrange a date. Once we will let the community know. I will say that we didn't have a large interest in participating last year, So what we will do is we'll advertise it, we'll encourage people to come to the live webinar, we'll ask for an RSVP. If we have one person, we'll run it. If we have no people, we'll let everybody know that we won't run it. But that's the only date that is to be determined on this.
Can I request that you consider using the podcasting club to do a little budget, like a budget podcast?
I
Even if they're
can
interviewing
ask
you,
them,
If they're willing to interview you or people about the budget, because that might get a little more interest.
Yeah, I can certainly ask them if that's something that they're interested in covering, and see if they'd like to do it. And I'll get back to the board if that's something they're interested in.
Everybody should have a copy of the budget timeline in front of them. Any other questions or concerns about this process? All right. Moving along to item 7, acceptance of minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular business meeting of January 21st, 2026 as presented. May I have a motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on to item 8, 8A, financial reports, acceptance of the claims audit report. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the claims audit report for January 2026 as presented. May I have a motion?
Second.
Any questions about the claims audit report? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item 9A, policy committee report with Jen.
Hi, so, we met just about 4 hours ago today. The committee met and we discussed 11 different items. At our next board meeting on March 4th, we'll have 4 policies for first reading. And I'll just wait, there are, a variety of different topics, but I'll just wait till that is available because we're by March 4th. Okay? There's one policy that we asked the administration to review, and we'll discuss that at our next meeting. We recommended no action on 3 policies. We had a nice conversation, thanks to Dusty. She found out there were certain policies that should be reviewed annually. There are 5 such policies, and we came up with a way in which that will make sure they're reviewed over the summer so that the policy committee can address that at the first meeting of every year. And then there are 3 policies that are impacted by bills that were signed into law. We don't have guidance on those yet, so we're waiting for guidance, but that's the final radar. And that's our report.
Great. Jen? Any questions for Jen? Okay. Moving along to finance committee report with Kent.
We met about 2 hours ago. Yeah, we had a good preview and a discussion of the current state of the finances for the district and a quick preview look at what might be in the budget presentation on March 4th. Some good discussion around that. You'll have to wait to see that on March 4th. But generally, the committee had a great discussion about the items that we think should be in the budget, what Greg and Joe are proposing. A good discussion was had by all. That's all that needs it.
Very true. Okay, any questions for Kent? Moving on to item 10, approval of the CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District here approve the Committee on Special Education (CSE) and Committee on Preschool Special Education (CPSE) recommendations and student placements. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item 11, coaching appointment. Be it resolved that this is for girls modified softball. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby appoints Kevin Keegan as girls modified softball coach for the 2025-2026 season as per the stipend amount negotiated in the GTA bargaining unit agreement. May I have a motion?
Second.
Any comments on this? Just other than thank you.
Thank you, Coach Keegan.
Thank you to Coach Keegan.
We're looking forward to this year's softball, this spring softball.
Great. All in in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? That brings us to our second public comment section. Seeing none public. We will open and close. And then moving on to item 13, board member comment. Eric?
Okay.
Jen?
I'm hoping at one of the budget meetings we can have a preview of the cafeteria food.
I've been asking.
Come anytime.
And popcorn and chicken.
I'll make sure it's a tater tot.
Yeah, make sure it's a tater
That
tot.
seems to be
Yeah.
our
Things
favorite.
about that popcorn chicken.
I put popcorn chicken, tater tots, and breakfast for lunch.
Yes.
But thank you for all your continued efforts for bringing lunch to our students here. It's commendable, both with the work that's being done here and the work that's done.
Nothing from me, Pete?
Just again, a thank you to everyone who was involved in the upper classroom group. I really think this is one of the, jewels in the crown that is our school. It's something that no other school really has. And I think if we do something great with it, we'll just take our school to yet another height. So I really hope we can.
Great, thank you. Kent?
Just kudos to you and the committee for putting the hard work to get that put together. It's something that people have been talking about around here for ages, and to see some renderings and discussion actually happening is really great.
Sarah?
Just two things. First, Annie was fantastic. I got to see it on Thursday night, and it was a really wonderful production, highlighting the kids' talent. The set was amazing. Length. I was really impressed. And then also, I'm attending the West Pine, the Westchester Catholic School Board Association meeting with Levenberg, our representative, tomorrow. And one of the things I had listed was to thank her for hopefully supporting the governor's plan for the increase in pre-K funding. If there's anything else that the board wants me to bring up or mention in terms of advocacy for this year's budget process, please let me know. So really, it's just, thank you for giving us money and not taking away money. And that's my message. Anyone start one? All right.
Great, thank you. All right, we will enter into executive session. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining unit negotiations with the GTA pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, discussing proposed, pending, or current litigation, and discussing probationary instructional staff. And motion.
Second.
All in favor?